much everyone here. So hello and welcome to this program of the University of Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Center. And today we're doing the tech part. We are so pleased to be able to bring you these educational programs to help support small businesses. Please be advised that we will be recording this conversation for ASB TDC education purposes. You will be able to access those recordings at our website and all of our past workshops and webinars, and we will post that link in the chat. I will introduce Jason and Alan momentarily. But first, I'd like to introduce us and tell you a little bit about the ASB TDC. I'm Amy Robinson, a specialty consultant with the Small Business Center, and I'm here today with my colleague and co-host, Chris Case. Say hello. If you don't know about the Small Business Development Center, it is a one-stop shop for startups and existing small businesses. We are associated with the University of Arkansas and affiliated with the SBA and statewide ASB TDC, as well as a national network of more than 1,000 small business centers across the country. Locally, we offer complimentary one-on-one, I did say complimentary, one-on-one consulting services and programs like this. We love to cover relevant topics for business owners, and if you're not already a client, we encourage you to visit us at sbtdc.uark.edu. Chris will post that in the chat as well, and all you have to do is click Get Consultant, and you'll be able to find us. After this presentation, again, you'll be able to find other programs at our website, so we hope that you will visit. We also have a fantastic toolbox for you to use that has all kinds of goodies for you to help support your business. Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you to say hello to everybody and get us going. Go ahead and stop sharing too.
Okay, great. So at lunchtime today, you guys, we are bringing you planning technology for your business with IntegriTech. We love this format, as you all already know, because it gives you all an opportunity to talk with experts, ask the questions that you have, and work through whatever challenges you and your small business may be having. This is an interactive workshop, so we encourage you to ask questions as we go along. Please keep yourself on mute until you have a question or comment, and then feel free to unmute, or you can also use the raise hand feature or post in chat. We will be monitoring that closely. Alan will actually be answering questions today in the chat, so please just open up and ask any questions that you possibly can think of, and we will get those answered. Amy.
I'm gonna have you keep going, Chris, because my yard guy is buzzing in the background. Go for it.
Okay, okay, great. So while we're getting to know IntegriTech, we also want to get to know you. So if you will, please post in the chat and let us know what industry that you're from and maybe what business technology questions that you know that you already have today. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Jason Robinson and Alan Moon.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Robinson. I am half of the founding founders of IntegriTech. We're a local IT service provider in Northwest Arkansas. We were born from the church. Alan and I come out of corporate America. A lot of what we used to work on kind of looks similar to what is behind me here. This is looks like a data center raised floor, and we came from Tyson specifically. So this is kind of looks like home to me back on the raised floor. But we launched the business in 2017 to serve small businesses in Northwest Arkansas. We serve our churches in a volunteer capacity. We're a Christian-based organization, and we really stress the partner aspect of what we do. We want to feel like an extension of our customers' organizations and be very integrated into their processes. Even, we're on the roster of one of our clients as an employee, basically. The name IntegriTech came from integrity and technology. We really hold that very near and dear. Integrity is everything in this business because trust, there's a lot of people trust a lot of things to us whenever they trust their technology. It's their data, there's privacy things. There's a lot that goes into that. So with that, Alan, do you have anything else to say about us? Or?
No, I'm just glad everybody showed up, and I'm glad the weather's getting nice out there, and look forward to seeing you in the chat while Jason's talking to you.
Yeah, and we do want this to be interactive. It helps to get more value out if I can speak specifically to, problems or challenges you guys may be facing. Collectively, we've got 30 years of IT experience at the Fortune 100 level, and the spectrum, really, like I say, it's from a 501c3 volunteer role at a small, 5, personnel church staff kind of place up to, supporting, tens of thousands of users globally. The team I left when I ejected from Tyson we were responsible for all of Tyson's data globally. We had 13 petabytes of capacity around about 100 locations globally, and we did that with about 6 folks. So we've got a breadth and depth of project knowledge and other things we can speak directly to. A lot of what I call war stories through our history, which at the time are never fun, but when you come out the other side, you always learn from those things, which are good. So what we seek to do, some examples of some things we've helped solve some problems locally with since we launched the business. We've had clients reach out to us that have been victims of ransomware, where we've come in and seen that their network security was not up to par, so to speak. They had holes in their firewall, and they had been breached, and they had gone through. They had contacted us after they had restored from backup. They didn't pay ransom, but they ended up having some data loss, and they needed to shore up some of that infrastructure. We've got customers that they had maybe a warehouse that went down, and it was down for several days, and they had an internal IT staff, and that staff was looking at it for 3-4 days, could not get that facility back up and running. They called us. We deployed to the site, walked on site, and it was very similar to the infrastructure that I built for my church, actually. So I put a finger on the problem within 30 minutes and was able to bring services back online and monitor for 2 to 3 hours while production began running again, and everything was cool after that. The breadth of technology that impacts your business, you really have to think about, like, what would happen if maybe all of it goes away, or just even some parts of it were to go away for a day. Like, what would that impact be for you, for your process, for your employees, for being able to serve your customers, and those kind of things. Is businesses today are very, very dependent on technology. So, the purpose of today's workshop is really to educate folks to be thinking of, things that maybe they don't normally think of day to day, because, a lot of people look at tech like a light switch. You flip it on, it works, and, they don't have to know what's in the breaker box or the wires or the other things that's there. And that's good. That's what we do. We come in and help maintain and manage all that. But, making decisions and things, vendor selection, we'll get into some facility pieces, devices, services, some other things as we talk through today. And like I say, if you have any specific questions about stuff, or we happen to mention something that maybe sparks a question, feel free to raise a hand or chat. And like I say, Alan can answer. And if we need to pause and kind of discuss, that's totally cool. We're here for you guys today. So with that, I like to start presentations with a quote, and this is one from Picasso. It's basically talking about goals and how you really set out to do it, and it really takes action. That's the part of it. You can have a dream, or you can have a goal, and a goal is what you're really going to have traction to achieve. And as a business owner, we launched, like I say, in 2017. I was corporate guy for a long time, so stepping out into this world, we actually came through the ASB TDC program. And Lori down there helped us a lot with a plan, how to get started. We were the epitome of a technician. Like, we know what we do very, very well. The businessing part of what we do is really where, as a computer person, there was things that were kind of foreign to us. So, we've learned a lot in the time we've been here. We continue to learn. It's a humbling walk each and every day, but we're so blessed to be in this area. I've lived here my whole life, like I say, and it's really an honor to serve the community and the capacity that we get to, even our volunteer roles are day to day in our businesses to help other businesses grow, because Northwest Arkansas is just such a great area. So a lot of people, when they set out with this, whether you're starting a new business, whether you're growing, whether you're transitioning, whatever those things may be, technology can really be a scary thing for a lot of folks, because there's a lot to it. So back in my corporate days, people used to say, how do you never boil the ocean, or how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and all those things. But really, though, it's just to make sure that you just focus on one thing at a time, or don't get overwhelmed. So a systematic approach is a really good way, making a list of things, and we've got some stuff we're going to help with that today. Stuff that you can step into and address. Maybe some of this pertains to your business and your needs. Maybe some of it doesn't. We're trying to do a broad stroke here, and we're happy to deep dive offline, or maybe at the end of this presentation, on some of those things as well, if we've got some time there too. But it really comes down to what your business needs are for your business. Your business is your business. It's not the guy next door. So the good thing about technology is there is a ton of solutions out there to suit those needs, but you got to make sure you pick the right ones. In a budget, everybody's got one. So making sure that we can operate within that, and then setting priorities, correctly. And Alan and I, pretty resourceful. We've been, like I say, the spectrum that we cover in our experience and the pedigree that we have is we've had $1 million budgets in hand to do those things. And I also at a church have scrapped together stuff off eBay to make stuff happen with almost no budget. So we cover a pretty broad stroke there as well. So resourcefulness is something that we've gotten pretty handy at over the years. So this slide is kind of a table of contents, if you will, for kind of what we're going to speak through. These are some topics to cover, things to think about, whether, like I say, you're launching, transitioning. We regularly run into clients that a lot of times technology is a set it and forget it, and they drive it till the wheels fall off and those kind of things. Maintenance is so important to your technology to make sure that because you're so reliant on it. So you planning for failures or life cycling things ahead of time before they really hit the ditch. Those are all things that really help with the continuity of your business and help processes flow. It's less interruption for things. All that stuff's very important. So
I love that you said that, Jason. We've got a couple of comments coming in. Please keep them coming. And Alan's already checking out your websites. We've got a couple of businesses here, and it really is about planning for the future and kind of knowing, seeing things down the line and what some of these newer businesses need to do earlier on, or if they're already existing. And we have some people that are helping other businesses. Hey, Wendy. And kind of knowing what it is that they can talk to them about and when to plan some of these things. And so that's great. You're hitting on everybody's hot button today. So that's fantastic.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, all pieces of technology is what works together. I think for me, a lot of times when I'm talking to businesses, I say really it's a three-legged stool. It's people, process, and technology. That's how we stand stable with things. If all I'm doing is presenting widgets and gadgets of different technology, at best I'm one leg of that stool. So we have a lot of project management background and like I say, budgetary responsibilities and other things, and we really want to inject ourselves into the people equation too and get to know the staff, get to understand our businesses and understand their needs, because it's an 80-20 rule. You got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. So when we sit with our customers to engage and consult, we listen to what their needs are so we can bring the best value for those for the technologies that we present, of the things that are on this board. And some of it is just steering a person in the right direction, not necessarily anything that we have to offer. It's just, hey, you need to look this way. This is what you can do. Or squeezing more out of what they got. A lot of people don't totally fully utilize what they're paying for a lot of times with technology. But telecom, it's going to be your internet, phone system, different type of things. Teams is huge these days too, as a collaboration platform. Zoom, everybody's doing that stuff with COVID. Branding, a business operating system, which some people may or may not be familiar with. We called that in enterprise ERP, enterprise resource planning, which was SAP in that space. And there's some small business players that we can kind of talk through. Contract management, a lot of people overlook the importance of really managing their contracts. I was actually between kind of the walkthrough we did with this, it was just this week I went and walked through a church that was up in Bentonville and said, what are you paying for internet? What do you got for a package? And the financial secretary was like, yeah, we pay about this. I don't know what it is. And we went and looked, and they have not revisited their telecom contract with Cox. And Cox isn't going to call you and say, hey, your 3 years is up on your contract. We can reduce your bill for the same speed, or we can add more speed for the same money, or renegotiate. Because technology, the good thing about it is it's faster and cheaper all the time, pretty much. That's how it operates. So all it is a phone call to either get better services for the same money flat, or save some dollars if you're okay with the services you're getting. So those kind of things are things we help coach our clients through as well. Security cannot be overstated. I mean, we could do an entire workshop on just security. It's something where a lot of small businesses think, hey, I'm not a target because I'm so small and they're never going to know I'm here. Well, that's not really the case. A lot of times small businesses are targeted specifically because they don't have an IT internal guy taking care of things, and the bad guys really know what the limits are for prosecution as well, because we did a workshop last year with or 2 years ago with the FBI CyberSec guy locally, and he went through, and if they don't exploit you for more than $30,000, you can't even file a case. And technology is very efficient and effective, good or bad. So somebody can sit out there and try to exploit thousands of small businesses to the tune of $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 a piece, and they will get more out of that than going and chasing, a big whale, so to speak, as far as doing an exploit on a corporate environment. So small businesses are very much targeted, and it's something that we try to educate our customers with, and start with a really good network, really good security. And then some of our small businesses, deal in areas where there's regulatory compliance. We have a customer with the DoD, they're a contractor, for the defense system. So we manage the compliance for them. We've got customers that manage HIPAA stuff. We help them with those things, navigating those compliances. Coming from a publicly traded company, we had definitely had some compliance to manage. So we're familiar with it. And then your devices, everything you have from your mobile to your laptop workstation, whether it's cloud-based or those kind of things, all that stuff's important, and it all plays a piece in the puzzle. I joked with the ladies earlier this week. I crushed my cell phone in a car door rental last week, and it's kind of funny how much you rely on those things, because it's multi-factor. So, it took me a little bit to figure out to get my recovery keys and things around to, get my access back to my accounts on some of the things that I had. So, but I was fortunate to get it repaired and get it back. So now we're good. Data is everything. So for businesses, you a lot of times are protecting client data. You have, maybe it is, intellectual property that you have for your business that, special sauce that you have nobody else does. We kind of literally had special sauce, from our old world for recipes and mixes that we managed, the data protection of, so those are key things, and primary data protection. And then disaster recovery was a real big piece of what I did in my corporate world. We contracted with IBM in Colorado, and I would fly twice a year to their bunker for 5 days and recover the company as if it had been blown off the map. So planning ahead is really very important to understand where your dependencies are, where your critical points are for your business, identifying those things, documenting those things, building a process around what if scenarios, so that when Murphy shows up, you guys are ready, kind of a deal. So in the telecom space, what we like to coach folks on, everybody is reliant on internet. Like if you ask a business, hey, what would happen if the internet went down? It's pretty catastrophic for a lot of businesses. However, a lot of businesses, they'll go out and purchase like a standard Cox cable modem or an AT&T link or something that's available. Even choosing where your business is, if you haven't chosen that yet, that's important, because sometimes we've got businesses that are rural and they don't really have any options. So that's important. So look at what's available. Look at your vendors. Look at what packages are there and what their reliabilities are. So reliability is an SLA, service level agreement, and they'll publish that, and they'll say, hey, we guarantee you to have X amount of uptime. And if they don't, you call them on it. You should get a refund. We've got major construction going on right here in Rogers and Pinnacle, and regularly for the last part of last year, we had regular outage with the service provider in the area. So our clients were suffering, and I'm like, we advocate dual WAN for redundancy. So where we come from in the enterprise, downtime is not, I mean, you keep thousands of workers 24/7 around the globe running. So the mindset that we take and the approach that we take to things is very uptime centric, which means it's just got to run. I mean, that's what a lot of people expect. Small businesses a lot of times close the doors on a Friday and then they come back on a Monday, or it's an 8 to 5 thing. We're used to operating in a 24/7 global environment. So, we want to bring those solutions to bear and have them as options, and try to present them at a cost that's affordable to a small business. And so an example of that would be in the telecommunications space specifically, a lot of businesses, and we have a client in Cave Springs, and they fired up a new business and they purchased a dedicated fiber internet link for the business. Well, dedicated fiber is expensive. And the reason she purchased it was because she was told, hey, this is the most reliable thing that they sell. Well, that is, dedicated fiber is the most reliable thing AT&T, Ritter, or any other service provider is going to be able to sell you. It's the best they got. They got a lot of redundancy built in underground for it. And they can stand on a higher SLA with that, saying it's going to be available more so than a standard cable modem or the other thing. But it comes at a cost, at a very significant cost, and probably average, throwing a number, around $800 or so a month. And a lot of businesses just can't afford that $800 a month, but they need that type of resiliency. So solution that we present for customers is we can come in and get a commodity grade internet service from like a Cox and a commodity grade internet service from an AT&T, and we can bond those in a device at your location. And if AT&T does not work at all nationally, globally, that does not matter, because Cox will run your network for your business. And if Cox goes down for whatever reason, AT&T will run your business. The uptime of that solution will beat what a dedicated fiber solution will allow, and it's going to be approximately half the cost in a lot of times, a lot of cases. For example, in our office, we pay about $400 for the internet, and we pay an AT&T and Cox link, and we bond them together. And when AT&T has problems in the area, we just continue to work. The kind of the epiphany for a solution like that came from an experience I had back in corporate. And IBM came in and said, hey, we're going to sell you this flagship server. It's never going to die, and it's awesome. And we go through everything pre-sales, we test the box, we pull the trigger. Very expensive piece of enterprise equipment, and within 90 days it pancakes. And I've got my production stuff running on it, and I have suits and ties flying in from IBM, talking to suits and ties locally about, hey, you did a good purchase. But at the end of the day, engineers don't know what they don't know, and what killed it was a 9-volt battery, basically, that was non-redundant in the frame. It had tons of redundancy built into it, but there was a battery that was not backed up by a different battery, and when it failed, the whole box failed. And at that point, we decided to take more of that under our control for redundancy. So we began purchasing with a little bit different strategy, and handling and controlling more of that on our own. So in the network space, that's an example of kind of how we do that, and we're able to achieve that, at a cost that a lot of businesses are able to absorb and afford. So, and on the phones, we've got we've got a phone plan that we will sell voice over IP. Things are very mobile nowadays, so it's got to be mobile friendly. And then I know that the ASB/TDC has talked about, GoDaddy, there's options for forwarding depending how small you are. Just be careful about giving your cell phone number out, because then everything hits that number. And then, when you grow to a point where you can't, handle it all on that one line anymore, you got to port it and those kind of things. So just kind of think ahead for those kind of solutions and situations.
Jason,
Sorry
I know, yeah, you're good. I know that telecommunications is one of the very first things that a lot of small businesses have to tackle. And we've got a lot of people working from home now, and so there's a lot of those work from home solution and questions. So I just wanted to pause here and make sure we're coming up on the halfway point, if you can believe it. But I want to just pause here and make sure that nobody has any specific questions. I see you all are sending Alan some questions, which is great. And he's rolling out answers there left and right. So please continue to do that. But I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity, if you are having a specific experience or anything that you wanted to share about the telecom aspect of things, please feel free to throw that out there.
Yeah, and you're right. A lot of times it's the first contract you sign, and a lot of times it happens before people call us, just like this thing. So she's in a 5-year deal, that she's got to wait to get out of before she's able to split like we have. But when we implemented the equipment, we implemented with that design in mind for when we do switch over. But yeah, you almost can't call too soon, when it comes to planning for this stuff with technology. So your branding and your domain, you're going to choose your business name, or maybe you're rebranding, or maybe you want to, position yourselves a little differently, forward facing, on the web or whatever. So there's websites that you do, you grab your domain from a registrar. It's going to be hosted. Maybe a service is going to take care of all this for you. You got to consider whether you're doing e-commerce online, what kind of platform you're going to do, how mobile it is. Like if you get with a vendor, something I always, try to really address is vendor lock-in. Vendors are, hey, great, I've got this fantastic solution, and when you come sign up with me, you'll never leave me. It's Hotel California, because it is custom coded, and you will never be able to port that to anything else other than like a complete rip and replace. And all the investment that you put in that technical debt is completely lost. So you have to be aware of those things as you step into that. And on the productivity tool side, we're an Office 365 shop here. We use Google Workspace. We're familiar with both. Emailing, that's the way we communicate and have for many, many years now. More of these meetings and things online are happening. You also have to consider your workflows, just what kind of tools are available for what your needs are. How do you track workflow now remotely, really? So are you running a Kanban board on Trello potentially to keep track of work tasks of who's doing what? So those are things that you really want to consider. Asana, I think, is another platform out there that's pretty popular for stuff like that. But how do you keep folks busy when you're dispersed nowadays for the most part versus being in an office when you can come stand in a pod and talk to 5 people at a time and really kind of distribute workflow verbally that way, the way things used to be. Now, how are these things happening now? That's kind of pivoted some of the productivity tools that are chosen today for a lot of businesses.
Jason, I know a lot of our, going back to branding and domain, I know a lot of our clients, that's another thing that they do fairly quickly. And some of those monthly fees can really add up over time. You think you're paying $6 here and $10 there and some of those things. So what are some of your, productivity tools are great. Typically, a lot of times people come in and there's a free version of a lot of things. And then there are, other, versions. Is there any tips or tricks on when to use the free, when to upgrade, and some of those things, and how to kind of keep some of those prices from accumulating too quickly?
Yeah. So, and we're actually on a slide here that'll kind of speak to some of that, but like, what we do, like try before you buy all you can is what I say, because you don't really know until you lay hands on things. In my old purchasing role where I was at, we would literally have vendors fly in equipment, set it up, and show us how it works on our floor in our environment before we pull the trigger on purchase. It's a little different ball game in the small business space, but it's still there. Software as a service, like you say, you sign up on a 30-day trial, you get to implement it, but make sure when you do your testing, you really focus on the testing and you test it right, and you're really vetting out all the features. There was, the story guy, right? There was a client locally purchased a piece of software that they thought fit the bill. It ended up not, and they spent 50 grand on a software package for their business that had 2 features missing. That when they purchased it, they tested it, but they only tested it from an office perspective, the office worker perspective. And in the field, where the field guys were at, there were 2 key features that were missing. And when they rolled the software out and the field guys were unable to be effective, they essentially had to roll it back. And they asked us to engage the software development team for the product and try to get them to implement these things. And at the end of the day, you're kind of at the mercy of those guys doing that software install, because they're the ones that own the code. Nothing we could really do to wrap around that. So it was kind of a bad deal. They ended up, kind of ejecting and pivoting. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and some of those costs can also just continue to add up. It looks cheap at the beginning. So really look at what you're getting for what you're paying for, how much it covers of what you need. And then are there services that bundle those things? And that's where, like on this business OS slide, we're looking at like QuickBooks that, a lot of businesses use QuickBooks, and you guys have got resources for that. Coming from enterprise where we did, when we set out, we wanted something that was a little broader in its design. So we have a platform called Zoho that we use, and it's the business operating system we chose, and it has CRM built into it. It has sales, some sales pieces built into it. It has inventory built into it. It has, invoice and billing management built into it. It honestly, like the licensing for the Zoho thing we pay for, has 43 applications inside of it for your business. And that's like bang for your buck, right? You may not use all of them. I think we use like a dozen right now, but as they continue to add modules to it, they code and add to this ecosystem that continues to, increase the value of the product. If you get something, and not that QuickBooks is wrong, a lot of people use it. It's good for a lot of folks. Every, if every, problem is a nail all I'm going to carry is a hammer kind of a thing. Everybody has a different thing. So QuickBooks works for a lot of folks, but there are a lot of bolt-ons that happen with that you'll buy a package and then bolt it on, and it's a separate developer, a separate back-end software company that's writing that. Now you're at the mercy of 2 separate software vendors for that function to work. Watch those things. At least with Zoho, I can engage Zoho, and that is one team that manages this entire suite of products, and the integration between them is really pretty seamless. And there's a lot of really cool things you can do with that. Like I say, Zoho does have a CRM, but also lists, HubSpot, Salesforce. So how do you manage your customer interactions, track all those things? there's really some pretty neat things with like even voice over IP integration. Like we have a customer, even our stuff too, where if you call us, it registers caller ID and it looks you up in our database. If you're an existing customer, we can add a new record. All those things happen so you can track those engagements, because when a customer calls and talks to Bob and then calls back and talk to Mary, well, Mary can see the last call that was done and the record there, and then that customer just feels so much more taken care of because they're not, telling their story over and over again every time they call for whatever service they may need or those kind of things. So, CRM is a pretty cool tool. And then
I think, Jason, I'm just going to ask real quick, because I know that a lot of times people get into these and then they've got all of their information uploaded and they've been using them for a while. I think one of the intimidating factors is switching out of those and starting a new system. We Salesforce and other CRM client retention management systems are definitely some of those intimidating factors. QuickBooks can be too. Switching everything over can be really intimidating. Do you have any like less painful ways to do those things other than getting into them and then figuring it out later?
Yeah. So, back to the whole focus on the trial, make sure that you exercise the system before you commit. Anything is a commitment, right? You want to commit to it because you want to do it right. You just want to make sure that the path you've chosen is the correct path. Engage experts, right? And we're not an expert of everything, fairly resourceful, have a good network of people, can reach out to people on others' behalf where it's like, hey, I don't even know who to call. Well, call us. We hang out a bunch of nerds too. We'll all talk together and figure something out. Or reach out into networks. I have no problem calling somebody blind on the web and talking geek speak. It's what we do. And I can get up to speed, translate that stuff to the business. They're like, okay, that does not work for me. We're going to move on to another product. That the pre-work is very critical. When you get moved into it, making the best judgment you can for the right product is key. But then if you're in it, if it's a system that has a standard backend, then that's something that can be exported and imported fairly easily a lot of times. So when you're exiting a system, it's not as bad, right? Like you can export it. There's some common formats of files and things that we can look to kind of flatten into and then migrate data and then, build a new system. This is Tyson was growth by acquisition. We did this all the time. Like we would take a company we would buy and we would extract data, move it around, shift it, shove it into new databases or do whatever. That stuff happens. It's application type maintenance, database type maintenance. But it goes back to the term technical debt. It is technical debt. When you venture down a path with any type of technology, you're investing in that. Well, if you choose to divert path, how much debt is involved in that? There's a whole lot of pieces of that decision to make when you make that pivot or move. But yeah, I mean, you just have to kind of watch those things and honestly keep up with it. Like if it's working for you now, great, but don't get complacent. There are some vendors that they own the market, they get complacent, and after years, they're not keeping up with the new guys out there kicking out the really good stuff that you want to be a part of. So, give feedback to your vendor and say, I need you. I mean, an email address will get answered, phone calls and those things. A lot of people are intimidated to even do that online. And I'm just not that way. I will engage, them and say, hey, this needs to be fixed. My wife was working on some graphic design tool on the web. It was cloud-based. She does this stuff for my church or our church. She had a problem with something and it wasn't working right. And I'm like, email them, tell them this is what you want to happen. In 2 weeks, they fixed the problem. Yeah, because she wasn't the only one emailing them. Every software development company they want to sell. They want to have a product that people use. And if enough people give feedback, that's the user voice wins a lot of times, and they'll steer that product to what the user base wants, or else they're going to be, not selling as many products and kind of on the downward end of it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely say feedback's good. Make sure you're, checking stuff up front, and then where you're at along the way, just continue to keep up and maintain with it. And if it's a portable system, even better. Those are the real good ones. But anything can be done. I mean, it's in technology. It really, it can be very expensive. An expensive conversation. But technology, there's a lot of things you can do with it. So. And the piece I kind of touched on earlier that a lot of people kind of gloss over is contract management. Have some way to track and manage your contracts for your business. have reminders set to revisit it. Even if it's something pretty simple, that's like, hey, it's May. I need to just look at my contracts for the year or whatever. Just do something on a regular basis, no matter how basic it may be, because you will end up, something will expire. You have an opportunity to renegotiate. A new vendor enters the market. Those kind of things. You have employees that go, employees that come. Maybe you have added so many employees that your software licensing, you now have a break for if you were to go back and renegotiate because you've added 10 employees and you hit that next tier, but the vendor is not going to volunteer that up. You can go back and say, hey, now I'm at 50 users for this. And if I'd have bought it brand new at 50, my price per user is $10, not 12. Those kind of things. Those are conversations to have, and then when you select your vendors, like Alan and I sit with leadership for our customers, and we'll sit down and help them vet, this is the path. They'll say, hey, this is the path I want to take. Is this the right vendor to choose for this? And the only way we are able to do that is to really ingrain ourselves. And that's the whole partner piece. So like get in, understand the business, talk to the people, understand where they want to go, and then look at what their, where their opportunities are, what vendors they're looking at, do the research, have the conversations, with those vendors. And customer references are huge. I almost never bought anything at Tyson, and even today, without, okay, you want to sell me something? And I tell people to do this with us. Customer reference anything. You got a customer right now, you got 2 or 3, let me talk to them and see what their experience is. I don't want to hear the salesman telling me this. The salesman tells you it's the greatest thing ever all the time. I want a real customer that you have. So, call other customers without the salesperson on the line and say, hey, you've been using this for 2 years. What's it like? Really? Like, what's it really like? And get that feedback. And somebody who's like industry as you, maybe in a different area in the country, even better, right? Because it's going to be more specific to what you do. You can ask those questions, how it suits your needs better.
So if you were to work with some of, a lot of our companies are smaller, and so if you were to maybe keeping a spreadsheet, would that be something you'd recommend, of kind of all the vendors that you've got going on? Because you were exactly right. After a period of time, you add the need. You have a need, and you add the service, and you add the contract or the contractor, and just kind of a simple spreadsheet of the contractor, kind of when you engage, what you're paying on a regular basis, and then I love your idea of going back and just be like, okay, it's May. I'm going to reevaluate all of this, and what is it really costing me, and am I getting everything? Because just like everything else, that contractor, they're going to let you go for as long as you will go. Sometimes they increase price and you don't even know. We all have an inbox full of emails from all these people that we're just like, and they email us so many times sometimes that we don't know when it's important and when it's just hey, we've got something else to sell you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's, and it's also maybe you have had a significant outage with a certain vendor, and it's something that you have a leverage point now, and you can come back and negotiate when you do your renewal. Hey, you guys said it was going to be this. We took a big hit. My business was down for a full day or two, and you said that wouldn't happen. So when we renegotiate, factor that in. Kind of twist them a little bit, see if you can get a discount on those things. Those are just all negotiating points. But a spreadsheet's a great idea. Get your vendors, drop them in there, contact information. I mean, people a lot of times have to dig through paperwork and stuff for that. Keep it all tidy, nice and neat, really good, because you can pick up the phone and call, and also those relationships too, because those salespeople will rotate those. That's a good place to keep that, right? So you got a new salesperson, drop it in the spreadsheet, keep that contact information updated, who you're talking to. It all comes down to relationships. If you got a great relationship with your salespeople, with your vendors and stuff, it will also, grease the wheels whenever things need to happen sometimes in a pinch, and that helps too. So security, yeah, this is a good one. So like I say, and everybody understands that security is important, and there's been all kinds of things, it comes out in the news a lot, a lot. And I don't like to try to say, hey, I don't like to do anything fear-based, so please don't think I'm trying to strike fear into everybody here, but security is super, super important for your business. Whether you're under any type of regulatory compliance, like I've got listed here, if you've got PII, which is personally identifiable information, credit card information, HIPAA, like healthcare stuff. You have anything specific to your industry that would be like, we've got DoD stuff that's super special, that's got all these other, FIPS compliance and federal regs and things like that. Those are all things in your business you need to know what you're supposed to be compliant to. and you got to know the target before you start striving towards that, and then implementing the technology layers to get there. At the end of the day, one of the best things you can do with security is education. Just educate yourselves a little bit on, what not to click, because I'm sure a lot of folks on this call that have dealt in any capacity with technology, people like me, and I come in and say, hey, we need to install this thing or set this guardrail up or do that. And they're like, yeah, well, now I can't do my job. Well, there's a balance of that, right? As a technology, as a guy who implements technology, I can say that we've got to put some guardrails up, and sometimes they got to be pretty high for certain reasons. But at the end of the day, we also understand and respect you got to do your job too. So there's a balance in that. But there's no 100% guaranteed bulletproof system that's going to prevent all the bad things from happening to any one person or machine or whatever. There's what they call 0 days, and a 0 day is like somebody who develops an exploit today and nobody knows it exists in the wild until it gets released. A lot of antivirus definitions and all the things that happen that are the checkers for these bad things are built on a definition database. It has to know about the fingerprint of what's bad to identify it to start with. 0 days, that's completely useless for. So there's what they now call heuristics with data analytics, AI and machine learning, and they will learn the behavior of your system, what you normally do on it day to day. It will actually understand what is an anomaly to that behavior and start red flagging those things. So there's pretty advanced stuff for security. It gets kind of into it's a security information event management tools. So it like tracks events on machines in real time, and it gets really deep on the FedGov side, especially. But those are things that, however far you want to carry that, you almost can carry it. But education is really one of the best and cheapest tools for that. We have a platform actually that we send, like phishing is huge. Email is the number one vector, period, of people clicking something in an inbox. A lot of times it looks like hey, you need to sign in to download this invoice, and then you give your credentials away, and then somebody goes and signs in, and then, everything breaks loose. So multi-factor authentication, do it every time you can. I mean, everywhere you can, multi-factor authentication. And even if you do multi-factor with a phone number, that's okay, but there actually are ways to break that and work around that. So like, whether you do a push notification with an app or something like Microsoft Authenticator, those kind of things. But a typical phone number with all the phone spoofing stuff, I'm sure people get these calls from. There's a lot of things in that system that folks are actually able to kind of circumvent some of that and split MFA to a different device sometimes, and even breach through MFA security. So there's a whole lot in this topic that really boils down to an awareness of things. Making sure that your environment is properly secured. And if you don't know, ask somebody to come in and take a look and give you kind of a general, like a risk assessment, to come in and take a look at things and give you a grade on where things are at. And then, on the software side too, making sure your tools are updated and maintained and they're not outdated. Firmware, we had a customer, the one that did the ransomware thing. I mean, they had an updated firmware, and it wasn't even how they got their ransomware. It was a different vector that they got ransomware from. But I told them, hey, this is just another thing. Your firmware's not updated. I can exploit your router from my office and backdoor into your network, and I will prove that if you will let me. And they said, sure, go ahead and do it. And I busted in the back door of their network from my office, which could have been anywhere in the world, just to show them, hey, this firmware bug was out there. It was a known exploit. I literally went out, downloaded the exploit, executed it off my laptop, and was in the back door of their network in 5 minutes. So, making sure maintenance is big with those kind of things. It's really a security deal.
Jason, so if we're, and not everybody's chimed in on, what industry they're in or what their business is, but, so if you had a 1 to 20 person business, let's just say, and generally speaking, and maybe it's just a 1 to 10 or 1 to 15, what are some of do you have some favorites? I know that, malware bites or something like that is a pretty common one. A lot of people are very mobile. So you've got a suite of everything from a laptop to a phone to a desktop. And what are some of the things that need to go across those? And then what are some of the regular kind of health checks, exactly what you're talking about, that somebody can do to make sure. And then the other question that and we get a lot of is just kind of, password protection and some of those other things. I don't know if you come across anything for smaller companies that you have their favorites and we're not. We know that you're not getting paid by them, but but you know, a LastPass or anything like that, that you feel like, you know, people that you see commonly skipped that could have saved some headaches for small businesses.
Yeah, password management's big. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, and we're a LastPass Enterprise customer, so we use LastPass Enterprise. And I know LastPass got some bad press lately about tracking things and all that, but for us, I want them to track that for my technicians because I know every time one of my technicians uses a password and what password they used. And if there's a termination thing, I can go back and see what accounts they've accessed and change passwords and things like that. But password sharing is something that, I mean, I visited a place that had 3-ring binder with sticky notes. That was their password management. I'm like, you know, like, and then they weren't updated, and then the sticky notes inevitably fall off, and they don't have account information anymore. So having a system for that's really important. And whether it's a LastPass, KeepPass, there's a bunch of them. OnePass, whatever works for you is really, you know, whatever you're going to adopt. Because if I can throw technology out there and say, hey, this is great, it works great for me, and you look at it and say, I'm not going to use it, well, it's of zero use. You know, you're not going to implement it, you're not going to follow it, you know, and if you're not, you know, following plan, then it's inevitably going to fall off and something's going to happen. From a hardware perspective, you know, like you were asking about, you know, laptops and all those things for your network, I would not advise for any business to go to Walmart or Best Buy and buy something off the shelf. Those devices are, there's millions of them out there. And if I'm a bad guy and I'm writing exploits for things, that's what I'm going to hit because they're everywhere and I can hit millions of them. And at the end of the day, there's those devices don't have an army of security engineers that are working every day 24/7 to keep the bad guys out. And that's what business devices do. Business devices are what, you know, typically are called UTMs, unified threat management, or next gen firewall type things. And they unfortunately have a subscription with them, but that subscription pays for those security engineers to keep you safe. And there are constant software patches updated on the network, on the wire, that keep things safe on the wire for you. That is not a thing when you go buy a Linksys down at Best Buy. You set it out there, you forget about the firmware. Next thing you know, there's an exploit that comes, and you know somebody's knocking on the back door and kicking it in from overseas, and they get into your network. So, you know, the typically the stories you hear online of that kind of stuff where somebody got into somebody's webcam at home and all these, a lot of times it's they left a default password on something, or you know they've bought some consumer off the shelf, something that was never updated or managed. Because even those consumer companies, when an exploit's found, you know they're obliged to fix it. They've got to push firmware update and those things. But if you don't know it's there, who's tracking that? You know, so you got to keep up with those things. We, you know, antivirus and management, you know, you mentioned Malwarebytes. It's a tool we've used in the past. Bitdefender is pretty common. That's one that we advocate. It's the core of the tool that we use for our security suite on the AV side of the house for our managed AV services, and it'll run on almost any device you got. Mobile device management, a lot of companies, you know, that's that whole thing as a small business and even an enterprise, like, you know, your phone versus company issued phone versus who owns it and what apps are installed and all those things that you run down. And it's a case by case basis. But at the end of the day, you can load MDM tools, which is mobile device management tools on devices that are, you know, iPads or Androids or whatever, and you can, you know, track them and, you know, check them for things. The whole process of like, how do you know when is it's got to be my thing is it's got to be automated, you know, 100%. I mean, it needs to be where something is automatically kicking that stuff in and tracking patches and alerting when it's not getting done right if something happens. Because at the end of the day, human behavior is I'm putting out the hottest fire anytime I come to work, and something has to be, that's what technology does, is behind the curtains it should always be working for you when you're doing your thing. And so to put on the checklist of all your employees, hey, you need to run antivirus today at noon, and hey, I need you to go on your phone and check this app and run this process, and then it's just not, I mean, it may work for a week, but that, you know, it real automation is really key to that. So I would say that's a big part of the success of an implementation for that. And then business class hardware, really, it's more expensive, but at the end of the day, what is the cost of your business if you get breached? You have, I mean, cybersec insurance, you know, real quick tip for that, everybody should have that. But yeah, if, what's the cost of your business if your data gets breached, if you get ransomware, you get shut down from something, you know, firmware's not updated, and then something craters, there's a cost to that, and it's hard to quantify because that's a risk maybe into the future that you don't see right now. But you know, it's definitely something worth sitting down, analyzing, and saying, I'm going to accept that risk, or yeah, probably best I did go this other route, you know, and
Yeah.
go ahead and invest.
I know we've only got about 10 minutes left, and you got a couple other things, and what to purchase is definitely one of those, and you got a couple of other things to cover. So I don't want to keep you too long.
Yep. Yeah, we'll keep going. So yeah, the devices thing real quick, kind of we just covered it is, laptop, desktop, lease versus buy, and refurb versus new. I will shop refurb and it doesn't bother me a bit. A lot of our businesses, we're going to do what's best for them based on budget. And I understand everybody's on a budget. So we'll go out and search whatever channel we think is going to be best for the customer and bring that to them. COVID kind of put a wrench in refurb because so many people went remote. Laptop refurb market dried up. So that's been a really tough one lately. But is it cap versus operational expenses? Do you need a desktop? Laptops nowadays for the mobile workforce is huge. So they're hard to get. I mean, timelines on orders and things, it's kind of tough. And then cloud for mobility. A lot of people use cloud for a lot of different things, file sharing. You got Dropbox and different services like that. You've got, Azure, which is the back end of Microsoft's cloud. AWS, we've done some projects in there. But yeah, I mean, we really stress business class, business quality devices when you do these things because, warranties, like if you buy a Dell or an HP with a warranty for next business day, that if something happens, you're up the next day. Those guys are going to be there. They're going to ship you a new device. We put all that stuff. And then with our healthcare clients, we have a keep your own hard drive clause so that if we do need to ship it off for data protection, we'll pull the hard drive out. It's covered in that. So there's all these considerations and it's all pertaining to, what does your business need? But make sure when you select your devices that, it's and standards for things also help, like buy the same type of device for your employees. So when you maintain them, if something breaks, you can rob a part from here and move it over to here, or what you're dealing with when you have a problem across them, those kind of things. And life cycle wise, track when you're buying them and plan on a 3 to 5 year refresh on that, budget for it. So if you've got a dozen laptops in your fleet, every year recycle 3 of them, right? And then in 4 years, you've recycled everybody and you keep them on a trickle, and it's not that much of a pain to the budget of buying 12 laptops all brand new. Um, so yeah, that's just some tips on hardware pieces. And we've absorbed all kinds of brands of hardware. I mean, I've seen a ton of what's out there, and there's some stuff I haven't touched, but being growth by acquisition the way we were corporate, and then seeing what we see now in small business, it prepared us even better just to step in, rip a curtain back, and just see something strange and start digging in, and absorb it, support it, and life cycle it when it makes sense. Data protection, super critical for your business. You want to make sure you got good backups, make sure you take them off site, make sure it's automated if you can get it that way. Documentation is key. Encryption, make sure you've got your data encrypted, especially if it's super sensitive stuff, because somebody smash and grab a laptop, yank a hard drive out. I don't have to have your password if it's not encrypted. I'll put that hard drive on another machine, steal all your data. If it's encrypted, I won't be able to do that. So those are things to think of. There's scary statistics out there on if you truly have a disaster and your business goes down and you have a complete data loss event, the odds of your business surviving is like, single digit percentages. It's bad. And what's the impact of, there's 2 key things in the data loss area that it's RP, what we call RPO and RTO. So recovery point objective and recovery time objective. Point is how much data can I lose? Time is how long does it take me to get it back? Because in backups, it's not necessarily, hey, I got my data, it's there on a shelf. Great, your data's on a shelf. How fast can you be operational off that data on the shelf? If it takes you 5 days, you have 5 days of essentially not running your business. So all things to consider, when you're talking about protecting the data for your business, something that I did a ton of in my old world. And I could talk forever about that for sure. But moving on for time. So we'll hit the remote workforce slide. And I think this will be the last one we'll open for questions, but in the world we're in today, everybody knows, the workforce has been dispersed. Things have changed. I talked earlier about data security, and phishing scams and things. The buddy system is something that happens inherently in an office that's not happening today. Phishing increased, I think, close to 800% over last year in 2020. And that threat vector was the number one thing, and it has been for a long time, but it had a huge spike because typically those emails go out in batch, so multiple people will get them at the same time in the same organization. And a lot of times it kind of looks a little odd, and you pause for a second and you'll look at your buddy over the pod and say, hey, does this look right? And they say, and now let's delete that. That don't happen today. You don't have that like quick check, So a lot of people are falling victim to that, and they click it, fall for the bait, and then next thing you know, they've released W-2s or W-4s for the company, and you can't get that data back. So I think that I saw in the chat earlier, stealing a line from me, but you can't unbreach your data. That's for real. It's out in the ether and it ain't come back. So, just watch for sharing devices at home, with kids playing games and things. That stuff, don't mix those things. Don't cross those streams. Your network at home, make sure it's secure, make sure it's password protected. Look for that little lock. We saw an SSL icon earlier. Like, if you have an SSL icon, the traffic you've got flowing between you and that site is going to be encrypted. Doesn't necessarily mean east-west is secure, but what's north-south between you and that site is secure. And education, we advocate a lot of education. That's what we love doing this right here. I hope to get to do a lot more of this, because this is really cool to share kind of what we know, but teaching people what to watch for, how to navigate those things. And in a given email, when you get it, a lot of people spoof display name to be the boss man. And a phishing scam is going to tell you, I need you to take an action. Most likely it's urgent and it's probably on a Friday afternoon. That's how they get people, because you're trying to rush out of the office and you got to do something quick. And, oh, boss man needs W-4s, and you send them out the door. Well, the display name may look like boss man, but if you click the drop down, the email address listed a lot of times is some foreign email account. And I mean, anybody can spoof that display name. It's very easy. It's not even like, hacker worthy, like, technical skill. It's just like a very simple kind of thing to do. And a lot of times that, casting a net of 10,000 emails like that, they may get 5 clickers, and they've got 50 W-4s and they're off to the black market to sell it. So just be aware of those things. Keep in communication. If in doubt, pick up the phone and call. If that's a legitimate invoice from one of your vendors, call them. Say, hey, is this real? Or have you been breached? And now these people are trying to get to me, because that's happened. So they work every angle they can. And sitting at one computer, you can reach literally globally to millions and billions of devices. So we're all out there navigating this ecosystem of this technology, and trying to stay as protected as we can and take care of our assets as a business and serve our customers the best way we can. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a ton of tools. The good thing about technology, I call it the great equalizer. It's available to almost anybody out there, and at a consumptive cost. A lot of times you swipe a card and you can get a little piece of that with all this cool technology for a small price monthly with some of these services that, and that's the thing too, back to the cost. A lot of people, when they look at that cost, like, yeah, but if you knew what was going into those services too, you would understand the value sometimes. And that's some things we help explain to customers too. It's like, that does seem like that. It may seem a little bit expensive, but look at all you get for it. And if you implement it right, you get the value out of it. I think a lot of people are okay with that. So.
Well, let's take this time, you guys. If anybody has a question and you want to unmute and ask yourself, that would be great. We've got a couple minutes left, or you can also type in the chat. But we'd love to hear any questions or comments that anybody has. Jason, I learned a lot. That was, you and Alan are a wealth of information.
And Alan, I know you've been on the back end chatting away. Is there anything that came up really commonly that you feel like everybody should know?
No, I mean, a lot of the chats were public to everyone there, but just a couple of direct ones. Just any system will work, as long as you work in the system. I mean, that's talking about following up on your contracts and stuff like that, and just that unbreaching your data. That's so the whole security thing is critical and key. People just need to ask questions, and they need to to reach out to the local businesses and then find out how else, I'd like to definitely promote the local businesses and stuff like that. And there's a lot of services that are available out there. We talked about some of the social media stuff and some of the chats. So, but no, I don't have an overarching theme that came through.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we'll sit down and talk, for free, and we'd love to come out and visit. I love to learn about local businesses and what they're doing. There's some really neat stuff going on in Northwest Arkansas. I got, when I walk into some businesses, I'm shocked at what they're doing. It's really cool stuff, and we get to learn about what they do, and kind of navigate some of the technical pieces for them and help them position themselves, maybe for a little bit more success or a little bit more growth, for certain things. So I love to talk tech. As you can see, I didn't give any time for Q&A, so love to meet with anybody.
We have loved getting to know you, and we're very excited that you are local, and I hope everybody got your contact information, and we want to thank everybody for being here. As an attendee of this conversation, you will be emailed a copy of this presentation. Jason and Alan have been very gracious in letting us give that to you. So if there was anything that you missed, you will have that there. And the recording will be on our website, as well as you will get a brief survey that will help us continue to bring you quality programs. Guess, Chris, you want to close us out? We can kiss too, but
Yeah.
mwah.
Okay, no, I know. Well, you guys can also find a full listing of our workshops at sbtdc.uark.edu. I kept posting that in the chat for you guys too, but you can also use the QR code that's right there on your screen for more information and to sign up for notifications and even become a client. We are also posting a lot of information on social media, so please follow us at Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But again, thank you guys so much for spending your lunch with us today, and we hope to see you guys next time.
Thank you all so much.
Bye, everybody.